yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, boy, you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay.
Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Welcome to episode 91 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show that is covering sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with co-host Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KCUH 1230 AM studios with Texas Radio Hall of Famer, none other than Ralph Cooper, in beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Let me go straight to Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. First, Mike, how you doing today?
Pretty good. How you doing, Doc? What's going on?
Man, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about life, the world. You know, it's hard to complain when you've been blessed. So I'm gonna work through it like champs. As I got the team back together today. Oh man, so I'm feeling good.
In the aftermath of such a beautiful weekend.
Yeah. That show. I will acknowledge that.
I'm talking about the weather. Was there something else? I'm sorry. No.
Yeah. That's what I was talking about. The weather too. It was great here in Houston, Texas. The weather,
man,
it was a sunny day.
Such a glorious sunny day.
Yeah, I'm not sure what everybody else may be talking about. I was talking about the weather. With that, Charles, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Dr. Cavil. Like you said, it was a great weekend. Finals this week. Got to get through finals, but I think everything is all good. I'm still rolling off the high from just a beautiful weekend.
Yeah,
beautiful weekend.
Yeah, all things just I don't know what you're referring to. Such a beautiful weekend like that. And, you know, these signs all around us. Amazing to see what's going on. With that, Charles Bishop, as we carry on with the show, let's stick with your side of it. What are some HBCU news of the week, if you would?
Sure thing. A lot of things to get to again this week, Dr. Ville, but we start off on a somber note. The Southwestern Athletic Conference mourns the passing of longtime former league staff member Milton Big Milt Taylor. Mr. Taylor, he worked with the SWAC for the past 15 years from December 2004 until December 2019. And in his role, he assisted with a variety of tasks, including the overall setup and operations for conference championship and tournament events, while also serving as a key office contact for the ordering and distribution of league paraphernalia and equipment. He was a graduate of Alabama State, where he was a former member of the ASU Marching Hornets band, as well as the Hornets baseball team. And after leaving Alabama State, Taylor went on to become head baseball coach at Ramsey High School in Birmingham. And after his coaching career, went on to become assistant equipment manager at Miles College. So a GoFundMe account has been set up in his memory, while details regarding the service arrangements are currently pending. And if you've been to any of the SWAC championships, SWAC basketball tournament, Big Milt, he is a present person in terms of a person who's always there, right in the mix of the setup, of the takedown, of everything. Got to know him pretty well. He's a great guy. He will be missed.
No doubt about it. I really appreciate you sharing that information and making sure we start the show off in remembrance to Milton Taylor. Obviously, if you've covered the SWAC tournament games over the last couple of years, he was certainly a figure that was involved that you've seen in many different aspects. And travel well, job well done. With that, Mike, as we get back to it, maybe to some more exciting notes, not necessarily anything more important, but what are some additional news of the day on your side? What do you want to bring to the table?
Oh, no, it's just terrible. Mr. Charles Barkley is in the news, guys. He's pledged $1 million to HBCU as an HBCU gift. This is nothing new over the past couple of years. So, and kudos to HBCU Game Day, also HBCU Sports, also all of the Twitter pages I got the announcement on. So I got to give them props first, as always. But retired NBA basketball star, Hall of Famer Charles Barkley has pledged $1 million to Tuskegee University. So in a recent interview with B103's Big Tigger in Atlanta, exclusively announced this. So he has selected to support Tuskegee through Capital One's The Match program, Champions for Change, presented by Turner Sports program, the premier golf event that boasts legendary events or athletes in competition, and it seeks to arouse awareness about HBCUs in their illustrious programs. So the match will air on Turner Network on television Friday, November 27th at 3 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. That's 2 p.m. Central Time. So, a lot of excitement. Barkley's pledged to Tuskegee. That's his fifth donation to a HBCU. So earlier this year, he pledged $1 million to Miles College. And then in 2016, Barkley pledged $1 million to both Alabama A&M in Huntsville and Clark Atlanta University. And in 2017, he pledged $1 million to the Morehouse in Atlanta. But there are HBCUs west of the Mississippi. I'm just saying. So, kudos to Charles on his support and his philanthropic work. It's a worthwhile effort as well. So that's my initial news of the day. Is Doc and CB.
Very, very appropriate there as you talk about that. Let me give a shout out before we go back to Charles. I think we'll give him the blessing to do the big news of the day. I think he had a significant other. I left it to him to make sure that he made the announcement in terms of what other things that out there just may have happened instead of just the sunshine. Who knows?
It's been that kind of week for Charles. So I'm just gonna lay down and let him go with the
it'd be so appropriate.
It's only appropriate.
But before we do that, as we good at these teasers, we got James Knox, Tony Daniels, several other ones. Chuck Hunt is back in the building, checking in from Monroe, Louisiana, as he does. Arby Parker, big time, giving us some love as he did the SWAC men's and women's basketball debut. Did a great job there. He's checking in from Huntsville, Alabama. Let's get it. That's right. We'll have to get Brother Parker on the show and make sure that he can give us some updates of how things are looking out there. Willie Alex Hines says, good evening. Checking in from Richmond, Virginia. That's CIAA country for you all that don't know that out there. Here to get my Tuesday HBCU lecture. Yes, we're here to give it to you. Much love to CIAA. And we'll get some news in on them as well. He talked about Chuck Hunt is giving us that news. We're going to jump in there with some of that news and get it going as Chuck Hunt is always on top of the news, latest and greatest. Ricky Burden out there, Graham fan checking in. Yes, Chris Tucker, Virginia University. Look at them. They deep.
They rolling deep today.
A.D. Drew always watching. Yes, Lonnie Shaw representing them Aggies checking in.
Brother Shaw.
Yeah, Aggie Lane. Who said A&T can't recruit in Texas? Duncan Powers, star for 4-star basketball. That was big. That was
I
big.
saw that.
We talked about it
That's a big announcement.
Yeah, that's a big one. Chuck Hunt is cheaping in, getting in a little bit on that 46 POTUS. Yeah, we're going to get the J-Mac. Man, Mr. Photographer, and among many other things, talented brother right there out of Atlanta. Hey, fellas, representing Morgan State, the Bears. James Knox, Reggie Howe, CIAA country, boy. They hit deep this week. We got to make sure we get
What did y'all do to CIAA that they rolling in deep?
I gave them a couple of texts and told them they need to represent. Make sure they knew what was going on.
I missed one
let's see
week.
What else.
Now we got CIAA.
Fawcett is in here. Ralph Cooper, the Hall of Famer, doing his thing as always. He said, Amos says, "What's up, guys?" Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Aggie basketball is back. Uh-oh. They say they got the preseason representations for the South and the MEAC. They got something to say about North Carolina Central. I see. Charlotte is in here. McGinnis, Karen Griffin, Boo Harris Jr., George Walker, Wendy Jenkins Bishop. She's waiting, Charles. What you waiting on? Russell Jackson.
What's she waiting on, Charles? What's she waiting on? What is Wendy waiting on? Tell us. What is she waiting on?
Changing political sports might be counseled. That's true. That's true, Lonnie. It's gonna be interesting to see how this going. Dexter Hill, Belinda Johnson, Jarvis Austin. Varick says, "Go Jags, man." You talking about a big time Jag fan out there, alumni.
Hey,
country boy too, man. I check him out on all his Facebook stuff. He putting in there work, garden be growing. I be like, man, give me some of that vegetables over there. Belinda Johnson, Gilbert Ingram Jr., James Knox says yes. VUU, Jarris Boone, Dr. Roderick Holmes,
Boone
in the house. Big time mathematics department chair at Texas Southern University. Jarris Boone, Herbert Bolden, boy, he's a big time fan there. What's up? He says, "Hey Doc, yeah, big Texas Southern fan, booster in all things. He gets it done." Anthony Johnson in the house. Kurt Wilson. Doc says, "What's up?" With that, without any more of a tease, let's go to Charles and see what he has on his mind in terms of some other news.
Well, let's see what we got going on here in HBCU sports.
What do we have, Charles?
Well, let me turn the clock back just a little bit to last week. The Jackson State had a commitment from one young Shedeur Sanders, committed to play for Jackson State, and he made the comment. It was just an opportunity he couldn't pass up to play with his dad. So, welcome home, Shedeur Sanders.
I set it up for him. He went to Jackson State. You see what he does. I set it up for him.
But Dr. Cavil, I have more. How about
okay.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
Okay.
Jackson State, they get another commitment today from a 4-star Florida State athlete, Isaiah Bolden. He's a sophomore wide receiver who entered the transfer portal in September, and he announced he is transferring to Jackson State. So that comes to us via HBCU Sports. Shout out to Kendrick Marshall and Mr. Ken Rashad over at HBCU Sports. So Jackson State, they're getting it done a little bit here. In the off season, we'll see. What happens as we hopefully play ball in the spring. But I tell you what, and this is for Michael Jones and for all the Brave Nation who's been in my inbox. You're right. Until it's on the field, it collective yawn. I feel you. So there. I offered the salvo to the Brave Nation.
Yeah, I hear you. Fred Whitty's on here representing Winston-Salem State, so I wanted to make sure that we got that in the house as you put it in there. That's pretty good. Rusty says, I love. I think I know what that means. Where he is loving a fan of. He said,
Dr. Cavil, hold up.
Strong.
Hold up, Dr. Cavil. Hold up.
Yeah. Mario Thomas is in the house. Brother.
Do you see what
Thomas, Jackson State, Alpha Man. Boy, that was my road dog back in Huntsville, Alabama, man. Y'all don't understand. I can tell y'all some stories. I don't want to get him in trouble though. He is a professional now.
Do you see what Charles is wearing?
Yes.
Subliminal.
I was doing my subliminal with you.
Blue Under Armour shirt. Now, you know I wear Under Armour all the time, but you going to pull that out. Is there some other message that you... I'm serious, you going to pull that out on us and not say anything?
Well done. you got me, Mike.
I'm not going to hold anything else. Howard folks think they got something going on. As we say, congratulations to Howard University alumni Kamala Harris on becoming Vice President-elect of the United States on Saturday, November 7th. Ms. Harris, a Howard University alumni, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority member, has been elected the 46th Vice President-elect of the United States of America. Via Twitter, Harris stated, quote, "The election is about so much more than Joe Biden or me." Harris continues, "About the soul of America and our willingness to fight for it. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Let's get started." In her speech, she came out in the white with the pearls. I was like, boy, she's sending all types of...
Yeah, she said
Hey, the ski-wee was loud. The ski-wee was loud.
I thought it was a tremendous shout out. I want to also, and obviously for a lot of folks out there, and this is anybody, I think, you always hold all your elected officials. And that's why I think the Senate race is important in regards to what's going on. But to Biden's credit, at this point, at least he acknowledged it and didn't hold it quiet. He talked about the African Americans, blacks, that has supported him in many different ways. And he said without resolution with everybody, but including them, that it's the reason where he is today, being the 46th President-elect of the United States of America. So it's fascinating to see what this means. As you always talk about representation, culture, and I could tell it was significant, and that's where sometimes my bias and blinders start to come on. I could tell by the way my wife moved around and ebbed and flowed that it was more significant than I wanted to acknowledge it. And I think there's some natural biases there that we need to always be cognizant of. And for the fact that, you know, I know there's a lot more work, and I think I've become more cynical over the years in general and just in terms of the process. Meaning I still mean, as said on your sign of polls open, vote today, and vote whenever the elections are. I certainly believe in exercising one of the tools in my belt, which I do believe in terms of voting, although I believe there's other things that we must do and things of that nature. But that doesn't mean that I should not appreciate other folks that understand the magnitude of the message and what it means to young girls, young African-American girls, young Asian girls in terms of Indian descent, obviously from the Caribbean, more specifically in terms of Jamaica and those kind of things. So those things matter. And so there's no way will I let that escape. Then a man of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity in regards to the Divine Nine, in terms of us being able to make sure we do our part in working with the community, which we are all saying that's what we do. We need to make sure that we do not get in the position of middle class or upper class, that we do not forget those that are less than us. And that's where we have grown in terms of a people. So we cannot forget that framework. So I did want to bring that to the table. So with that, back to some fun, as we did a little serious break in there. As we get started, we are looking to have our guest in shortly. And so we'll get into some more updates as we get into that, as we bring in our guests. We'll do that shortly. And I might have to step away as we get into this interview. I have a little surprise that I want to debut on the show in a couple of ways that was just delivered to me. So excuse me for stepping away, but I think you all will want to see this and be entertained by this. So I'm going to start off this interview. I'm going to pass it on to Charles and then Mike, and that should give me time to circle back and get these things as we bring in our guest of the evening, none other than one of the young guns, as I like to call him out there, that has cut his teeth in the SWAC, but is respected. And y'all need to understand that respected beyond the SWAC, and that's not to belittle the SWAC, but to understand the shape of what the SWAC, and in this case, Southern University in particular, what they have groomed and developed, and what his people, as they would say in that part, have done for him. So we will talk collegiate athletic administration with Southern University's Deputy Executive Athletic Director. I think he has some other titles, but it gets to get long when you put it on the business card. Chief Operating Officer. I think he did that because they were scared that he was going to leave, because I'm telling you, young gun, he going to be out there. He going to be AD, VP of Athletics. They got all these fancy titles now. Vice President of Intercollegiate Athletics. That's just so they can pay him well. So I'm going to make sure I'm around. I'm on his ticket. When we have to, you say, yeah, that's on him. This is my buddy there. But all kidding, this is a star amongst us. And we need to understand when we have people of this nature, and as we see them, we need to make sure that we are part of their ascension, and that we acknowledge them about the work that they're doing. Because one thing I will say that I've been able to dialogue with Dr. Scott is the fact that he is looking for people behind him to bring them up as well. And so when we have folks of that nature, I want us to understand what that really means. And so we need to seek that and be a part of it. So with all that, you can go on and send a check in the mail, because I do take that. Yeah, you thought they were free, didn't you? You thought they were free? No.
It's free. It's 2200 now. We're sending wire transfer.
No. We bigger than that. Just the Cash App. Don't worry, it's simple. Cash App.
Yeah, Cash App.
Cash App. What is the infamous Randy Moss quote? Straight cash, homie.
Straight cash, homie.
There you go. So let's let people know who you are, where you're from, a little bit about the history. A lot of our fans here know you, but just in case. And we have a lot of people that come and check this out afterwards that are big fans that may not know as much. So as we think it's appropriate, because we'll have you on many other times, but for this first one, let's set the stage appropriately. So tell people where you're from.
So I'm originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, obviously home of Southern University. I'm a homeboy, so to speak. So, right, I attended high school at a little school right on the campus of Southern University Laboratory School, and was a student athlete there, and played basketball for Joe Hawkins. If anybody knows anything about Coach Hawkins, he's to date the winningest basketball coach in the state of Louisiana's history. And so cut my teeth there, really learned a lot about leadership and being able to win and all of the things that he taught us. Obviously, he taught us to be men and be a man of your word and understand, how to carry yourself, and moved on from there and transitioned, signed a 4-year scholarship opportunity at Texas A&M. And so I was there for a year and decided to transfer back to Southern University, where I finished up with degrees in management and marketing in 2.5 years. So finished there, got my master's, went in corporate for a little while, and did some things there. I was a vice president over at AmSouth and Regions Bank, and I worked over in State Farm Insurance and Financial Services, and was able to do some things there. And I got a call in 2011. I believe Sandy Pugh, the head women's basketball coach at Prairie View A&M, had assumed the role of interim athletic director at Southern. And she had known of my interest of wanting to be in athletics, and understood where I stood from the standpoint of learning and understanding, the importance of student athletes and athletics and the role that it had played into my life personally. And so she extended me the opportunity to come aboard. And once I got there, I realized that, my role then extended, kind of in various areas. And so I started off kind of like externals, really that special assistant, that ambassador, that person who knew the area, the lay of the land, kind of knew where the key influences were and are at that time. And then we started to have issues with NCAA and APR, right? And so I kind of worked my way into the academic realm, and really started to dig in with that. And obviously with some of the struggles that we've had that have been well chronicled over the years, with academic progress rate issues and unusable data issues that we faced, really in the shadows of our institution, declaring for financial exigency in 2011. So it kind of morphed into this situation that carried over into athletics. And so kind of came in to immediate academic issues and worked our way out of that. Was a key part in being able to kind of elevate us to that. And from that standpoint, men's basketball team under the leadership of head coach Roman Banks at the time was really starting to get their footing in terms of what they were doing. And so we were able to get them eligible. They went to the NCAA tournament immediately and gave Gonzaga the scare of their lives. That was the 1-16 battle before the Virginia triumph a few years ago. And so we thought we were rolling. We had everything going. Our sports were starting to project APR scores. We're starting to project well, and then here comes the unusable data ban, right? And so at that point, we had some internal issues on the campus, which really kept us from being able to provide the NCAA with the usable data that they needed to certify eligibility and retention of our student athletes. And so then that carried on. And once we got through the unusable data ban, obviously when you're unable to certify some data, then the accuracy of your data is then in question. So then it morphs back into APR issues, right? And so those things started to occur. I got an opportunity then from our interim chancellor at the time, Flanders McClinton, who's one of our vice presidents of finance and administration. And he came to me and he said, hey, I know you're enjoying your role as kind of the quote unquote jack of all trades, but we need you in academics and compliance. And I said, well, why? He said, because you're the only guy that the NCAA genuinely, has a relationship with and trusts to be able to get us through this. My response at first glance was absolutely not. By then, I had seen my backyard during the daylight in about 18 months. We had recertified about 5,000 packets, right? So we went back for about 5 or 6 years, and we recertified every student athlete in every sport for every major and determined whether they were eligible and ineligible in that major. Right. And so quite the undertaking. Also, we were able to bring in a consultant who worked in the registrar's office at the time at Jackson State University, coincidentally, and brought her in. And we actually worked hand in hand to rebuild the institutional structure. And so got through that part and then really started to take off from there, obviously, with our sports really doing the things that they've done with regard to their academics. And so now it charted that path. Now there's been issues following that. Obviously, as a result of that, we had to take some penalties and do some of those things and quote unquote fall on the sword and pay for those things. But those were things in prior years. But since then, obviously, we've had the opportunity to rebuild our academic structure, which I was charged with the responsibility of. We've done some really outstanding things in that area. We've actually opened the only standalone academic center for student athletes in our conference. It's only the second one in the state, and I don't have to tell you where the other one is. And so we've got about 6,000 square feet of pure learning environment for our student athletes, centralized learning, computers, technology. We've got quiet, distraction-free environments. We've even got a fueling station where our student athletes could actually eat and study, obviously with nutritious snacks and things of that nature. But while also being able to centralize our academic and compliance and student athlete development units. So it's a one-stop shop, being advised, being counseled. The mental health side is located in that area as well. And so, coming from that was kind of given more responsibility and moved on, had an opportunity to leave and decided, to stay, that the work wasn't done. And since then, I've been more in more of a managerial role as it relates to higher administration. I've got a lot of relationships with our vice presidents, our vice chancellors, our president's office, our chancellor's offices, with the chancellors of our other campuses, and really now works more in addition to that academics and compliance piece, oversees the external and internal sides of the house, from everything to equipment, facilities, operations, events, marketing, development, in addition to academics and compliance. And so for me, to be able to really cut my teeth in those multiple areas at home is special. It gives me the opportunity to really, try to do as best I can to put my stamp on things. And I'm only a product of the experiences that I've gained, but I'm also a product and a representation of the confidence that our board of supervisors has in me, that our president chancellor, Dr. Ray Belton, has in me, and that our athletic director, Roman Banks, has in me. to be able to give me the confidence, or have the confidence in me to be able to lead a group of my peers, a group of folks who are older, younger, more, head football coaches. We all know how, coaches can sometimes have egos. We don't have any of that. And so it's just great for me to be here. I appreciate the opening. I wouldn't say I'm so well deserving of it, but I'm only here because of the experiences that I've had. I owe my life to HBCU. I am a product, obviously, of a disadvantaged home, and sports saved my life. So I take this seriously, right? And so being a student athlete is something that I feel is a privilege. It's not a right, and it's something that can change a person's generational perspective as it relates to being able to provide for your family and opportunities for your children and future generations. So I'll stop there. I have a tendency to be long-winded, but I am so excited to be here with you all this evening, and I would be more than welcome to answer and provide any answers to any questions, to shed light on things, and really to speak on my journey and how I can help other people kind of come up and realize their dreams and goals as well.
No doubt about it. Get into that. Oh, okay, Dr. Ville, you're back. I wasn't sure there, so I couldn't see.
I told you it don't take me no long.
I was ready to
go ahead and shout out. This is what happens when you know.
Look at.
So Southern University, you're on the clock. All the folks out there talking about Southern now. On this show here, we represent for people's good. This is coming from the SIAC, obviously, the commissioner's office. He's excited. I gave him some credit, and I gave, we work with all the high level folks. Dr. Scott will tell you. Then when I talk about what I do with the conference office and who I know, I'm not just talking, because I know some of y'all be like, man, Cavil trying to take all this credit. No, I just stay in the background, but I put in work. And so this is SIAC. As you know today, they expansion. Allen University back to the SIAC. So he wanted to make sure that they got their love on him. We're going to talk about Allen, SIAC. But Southern, if y'all want some love, I need my baseball cap. Man,
I got you covered. I'll hold it down for us. I got you covered.
I understand. Jackson State, they make sure I get the cap. I have all the Prairie View, but I need to talk about that. I got to buy everything at Prairie View. I don't understand. I'm going to charge them with something. I'm about to change the game. Texas Southern University, I do what I do. These folks take care of you. I'm going to make sure that information out there now. With that, let me let Charles jump back in here and ask some particulars in regard to athletics and how you're starting to move forward with the program, because we got a chance to really get a great framework of where you're from, who you are, why you do what you do, and how you got there. And it was extensive, but people need to understand, to get to a place where you have a title like Deputy Executive Athletic Director, Chief Operating Officer, Doctor. I mean, you're not just sitting down, you're getting things done, you're putting in some work. With that, Charles, go ahead and follow up with a question, please.
Well, Dr. Scott, I thought you provided a tremendous framework, I think, of how you got started into athletics administration. And I want to start off by saying, congratulations, I think, are in order. In June, you were selected to the NCAA Pathways program as one of the 10 NCAA Division I participants in the program. And in October, you were selected to attend the Top Connect AD Leadership Symposium for aspiring Division I athletics directors. And I wanted to ask, how has that experience participating in both of those programs, how has that changed you as an administrator?
I can tell you, and I'll start with Pathways. Pathways is one of those programs that I dreamt about, right? I've done quite an extensive amount of programming with the NCAA since 2013 or 14. And Pathways is kind of viewed as the holy grail, so to speak, of that programming for senior level administration. I can quite frankly tell you that the Pathways program, since getting started, has been nothing short of life-changing. I've got the opportunity to be provided a mentor in Alan Green, the director of athletics at Auburn University. And one of the things that I learned very early from him is that he wasn't going to give me any excuses. He wasn't going to take anything but my best. And so it pushes you in that regard. But let me tell you this, and this is one of the things, and I've never been someone who is self-conscious, right? But when you're sitting in a room with the deputy AD at Notre Dame, right, and the senior associate AD at the University of Louisville, sometimes that can be when you're from a smaller HBCU in the South, it can be a little intimidating. I'm very, very lucky because each of those individuals, and it's not just them, but I'm very lucky because each of those individuals have their own set of ideals, but they are open and they are willing to learn and grow just as much as I am. And I find myself, I started out really not saying much, just trying to, find my way in the room. And as we get deeper into the program, I kind of hear them saying, hey, Trayvean, can you give us more? And I'm like, well, why? Dude, you're at Notre Dame, right? You're at Louisville. Why do you want to hear from me? And it's because the perspective that we offer at our level is wholly different from what they experience. Obviously, when you're at a Power 5 institution and you're in marketing, that's all you're doing. When you're in compliance, that's all you're doing. We have the opportunity as practitioners and as in low resource institutions to be able to learn the full gamut, the full range of all that there is to know. Couple that with the fact of the leadership at the NCAA and the relationships that it provides. I was actually having a conversation with Tanya Vogel today, the athletic director at where is Tanya? Tanya's at George Washington, GW. And so, she just dropped me a note, totally unsolicited, hey, had a chance to hear you speak, during the Pathways program, just want to encourage you to keep going. That means the world to not only me, but to us. And then to be able to say, hey, if you need anything, reach out. And then when I reach out, to actually answer the phone, right? And so, just those relationships, being able to bounce things off of them, but being able to have my voice be heard, I think is amazing in and of itself. Top Connect AD, it was something very similar. It was more of one of those programs that, it's more, in and out, kind of like a weekend, couple of days worth of programming, but was able to get a lot out of that as well. We discussed a lot of budgeting, a lot of marketing, a lot of crisis management and crisis intervention. Obviously, with all of the COVID and social justice things that are going on, we just had something incident with one of our student athletes on yesterday. Yeah. And so, being able to take and draw those nuggets from those individuals and then have them as a sounding board if I need any additional information or need to have something related to me in a way that I can understand it on a little bit better level, they've all been available to me. I would encourage anybody who wants to work in athletics or anybody who has worked in athletics to take the professional development seriously. Obviously, it's a mechanism for networking, but it's more so a mechanism for learning and growing. And the first thing I tell anybody that I hire, I give them two choices. And anybody who's ever been on any team I've been a part of since I've been in lower, middle, upper, whatever you want to classify me as, I don't take myself that seriously. But I give them two choices. You're going to grow and go, or you're going to grow or go. That's your choices. And, professional development, being able to discover and understand best practices, asking questions, taking notes, visiting other campuses, listening to podcasts even. They're so valuable to our growth and development. And those two information centers for me here recently has been able to provide that for me as well.
Yes, this is Dr. Cavil with Inside HBCU Sports Lab. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. And so if you can stick around with us, Dr. Scott, we'll come back because I know Mike wants to get in here and ask some questions. But before we go to this break, as we get there, I want to give a shout out to a couple of folks that's joined us in regards to Kay Johnson is always in the house. She's always giving us much love out of Atlanta. Good evening, Inside HBCU Sports Lab. Jermaine Anderson, Chad Cooper, Thomas White Jr., Ronaldo Christmas, Cedric Johnson, Murdoch Williams Jr., Kim Washington, she says, love the HBCU Sports Lab. Also hearing big things about Cafe 1876. Boy, we got something in the works over there on the hill. Let's see what's going on. Letting the cat out the bag, giving y'all a nice little tease. Good job, Kim Washington. We're going to have to put her on the payroll. Well done. Lawrence D. White, Kim Washington, checking us out as you just said. Jerome Jeep Sutton, Chuck Hunter's back in here talking about that laboratory high school. The kittens. Lawrence D. White says late, but Big D, but Dallas checking in. Go PBU Panthers. Never late, always on time in the lab. We just glad to have you. You jump in and jump out. That's what we do. It's all big time family giving it to you. Jerome Jeep Sutton, FAMU Rattlers. Yes. SWAC 2021. It should be interesting. Tracy Gullett, Cedric Johnson. What's up? Belinda Johnson says the lab school. Yes, the lab school. Kay Johnson can't get enough of HBCU Sports Lab. Let's go. Jackson State Tigers. Boy, that's what we do. Dr. Cavil's inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Keep listening. We'll be right back with our exciting interview with the Deputy Executive Athletic Director, Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Trayvean Scott, Southern University. Take us to a break. Dr. Cavill's inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As we kick it to Charles, I want to give a shout out quote here to AD Drew as they get it done with Brian and AD of the Sports Rap. You can check them on the BCSN network as we get it done. He says there were over 200 HBCU alumni elected or re-elected recently in 2020. He has just picked up a position where he'll be representing mayors all over the country. So kudos. So he got the data. He knows what he's talking about. As we like to talk about here, the data doctor, Mike Washington, as he gets it done with a lot of that data. So just giving it out to Russ. Russie says, program host, please share your thoughts and feelings about the future of all HBCU sports campuses. We'll do that. We'll give you some love. In fact, we'll have a show where we'll dig into that a little deeper as we continue, but we'll share a little bit on that. Just wanted to make sure we get some love and kudos for those that are out here tagging us up. We appreciate y'all. Chad Cooper, always enjoy the show. All right, go Jags. Hillman Frazier, I love and believe in JSU. I see that. I like the way he combined that. That's pretty nice. Go ahead, Mr. Frazier. Chuck Hunt says Robin Gordon, he's chugging, and getting this out there. So appreciate it. So back to it as we are in our interview with Southern University, the Deputy Executive Athletic Director, Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Trayvean Scott. My friend, I just like to call him the young guns, boy. These folks putting in work. Yeah. Y'all need to watch out. He's going to make big things happening now, and he's on his way as we get it done. With that, let me take it to Mike and let him follow up with a question. But before you do that, they are coming.
You just had to, you had, there you go.
They are coming.
There you go.
You show us, represent the THC family. We're going to educate as we continue to congratulate and get it done in a lot of ways. We're going to make it big time for y'all. So be on the lookout. Those shows are coming. Nice quality. THG, the Heritage Group, as we call it. That's the production behind, the funding behind all this. Obviously, our production is done by none other than Roy Evans, FAMU Rattler. Getting it done. We tease him. He's a member of Phi Beta Sigma. We're going to let Trayvean get a little cats out of the bag because we got all this alpha men over here. So we share the stage with a little bit. But, you know, some of y'all, man, y'all get to stomping with your boots and hitting your little all that. I don't know what all that. Go ahead, Mike. Follow up before I get lost in this and tell on me.
Yeah. Before you digress. So,
hey, listen, I'm here for it. Let's do it.
We got gold boots too now, you know. I'm just saying. So, Dr. Scott, real quick, let me first say congratulations, not only on Pathway, but also to the Stand United campaign as well. But my question is simply twofold. We asked this of all athletic directors. What are some, this has been a challenging year. You represent probably the school with maybe the third best band in the SWAC. There are a few others that may rank higher above you. I mean, that's arguments. We'll get into that later. But what are some of the kind of the unexpected things that you've had to deal with, as an administrator during the pandemic era, and how has this affected your planning for football and basketball schedules going in to the spring, which is different than the fall? So I know that's twofold, but tell me your approach and tell me, how this has changed the year for you.
Well, first of all, we had to expect the unexpected, right? You just never know. For us, we were deeply rooted in policy and procedure, especially as it relates to COVID. Obviously, as we've been able to kind of research this thing out, we're learning more about it. But as we've learned, we really can't prevent it. So, now we're talking about slowing the spread. We took several steps toward ensuring that we've been able to kind of hold the wheel, so to speak, and we don't have any massive outbreaks. We actually started later with our sports. So we didn't start a practice or workout until almost the last week in September, right? I'm getting ready to get on the horn when we get off of here. We're actually getting ready to shut down most of our sports as of this Friday, with the exception of football. It's actually getting ready to start practice tomorrow, right? So we've got football, women's basketball, men's basketball. We'll allow some bowling. We actually cheers in athletics department. So they have one little event that they'll do as well. But I will tell you, first and foremost, planning for the unexpected, obviously, with the amount of resources that are needed as far as testing and being able to provide a frequency of tests can quite frankly be costly, obviously. And so what we were able to do is take advantage of some state resources, take advantage of the resources that we have, be able to leverage a corporate sponsorship agreement that we have with a medical provider, and was able to offset a lot of those costs and be able to get all of our student athletes tested in a timely fashion. The second thing we did was basically tier it. So if we had student athletes in season, then obviously their frequency of tests had to be different. Men's basketball, women's basketball, for example, are quote unquote in season. So they're testing right now every week. So men's basketball test every Monday, women's basketball test every Tuesday. With football getting ready to start off, we'll do the same things for them. Everybody else, we're doing obviously 1 week with our testing provider, 1 week utilizing the state resources. So we're being creative. What that has caused, obviously, is a logjam with what I call the medical staff within the athletics department. So our certified athletic trainers, and we've been keeping them busy, obviously, trying to be creative with some of the scheduling so that we don't burn them out as well. I think you referenced scheduling. Obviously, with the NCAA moving basketball back to November 25th, that has substantial implications on budgets by way of guaranteed contests and things of that nature. We've been able to adjust in large part on the women's basketball side because those guarantee amounts hadn't changed really much. But on the men's side, quite frankly, they've taken a beating, right? So don't want to subject themselves or lock themselves into the six-figure payments for a 3-hour contest. Again, they're attaching COVID testing to being able to come in and play. You have to have COVID test before you get on the plane, COVID test before you walk in the gym, COVID test the day before you play, right?
Wow.
We're able to, and we've been creative as schedule makers to be able to again, try to leverage and offset a lot of those costs. A lot of the agreements that we're negotiating on the men's side, we were negotiating COVID testing within the individual agreements on that side. And so we're getting ready to get the men's basketball program and team off to be able to play some of those games. But who knows what will happen if one of our student athletes contracts it in an airport, or if one of their student athletes contracts it in a dorm, then that game will be canceled and not rescheduled. Again, the unknown. In terms of football, obviously, we've got a football schedule now. We're going to play 2 home games. Obviously, for us, being able to move or kind of negotiate some of those games away from A.W. Mumford is not an always popular decision. But when you talk about what A.W. Mumford Stadium means to the Southwestern Athletic Conference with the game day atmosphere, means, I heard you say third best band. I almost lost my lunch, but the human jukebox and Coach Odoms and his staff and what we call them the mean, the A.W. Mumford, it's just really hard for us to try to schedule a game, especially with the Jackson State and A.W. Mumford State 25% capacity. It's just not fair to our fans, right? And so we had to be really intentional about what we were doing because we felt in a lot of ways scheduling those games at home would be punishment to our fans, right? So, but again, still the unknown. We're having conversations now with baseball and softball relative to what types of schedules that they're wanting to put together from the conference level. We're in discussions with the conference office, with the other athletic directors and senior women administrators about what those schedules are going to look like, whether they're mirror schedules and things of that nature, to try to get as many contests in as short a period of time, because again, the unknown, right? So volleyball starts June 24th, I believe. Track starts June 25th. You know, you've got all of these things kind of moving. So all of our conference members of our conference are going to be operating 14, 15, 16, up to 18 sports simultaneously with minimum resources and no revenues derived from football and really men's basketball because of COVID-19. And so we're really trying to be creative. I heard you reference the Stand United campaign. We're actually working now to actually develop the next phase of that campaign, which is the Jagathon. We'll do it in April. And so we really have to get out now and not only, cut expenditures associated with not being able to realize those revenues, but we've got to find creative ways to raise those dollars to try to fill that gap in those budgets. Obviously, with the federal government stepping in and assisting the states, it's kind of helped us a little bit, but only from the standpoint of being able to provide the necessary COVID-related supplies and materials that we needed, right? We've still got to operate a $3.5 to $4 million scholarship budget. We've still got to negotiate and be able to move through a $3.5 or $3 million personnel budget, right? And then we've got to function on a day-to-day basis. And so that takes dollars, and we've got to be creative and reach out to our fans, our alums, our base, and try to bring those dollars into campus and fill that gap.
No doubt about it.
Thank you very much.
I really love the breakdown as you take us inside the number from that perspective of operating the athletic. Oftentimes we talk about X's and O's with coaches, other times with athletic directors. Sometimes we got into some of the nature of the expansion and those things, but now we're getting a chance to take a deeper dive. The operation side, what does it mean to really look at that? So the question I have for you as we close up on this part of it, and then we'll give you a chance to really share some thoughts you may have. But as we close up on that, I want you to talk about expansion of the conference with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman, but I want you to do it from a financial perspective. And you can do it particularly of what it means to Southern University, because I know it may be slightly different from different institutions across the SWAC. But the uniqueness of Southern University, Jackson State is another one of the programs that are able to do it all corner late, especially in the sport of football. You've seen that to some degree with Prairie View in the mix in basketball in terms of the revenue they're able to generate. But Southern is able to do it even with baseball to some degree. One of the few sports, conference members that can do it in terms of baseball, not because of the interest, but the ability and the amount of folks that come that they can charge at baseball games, which is not always the case across the conference. Some other ones do it, but just to give a plug there. Talk about what in your mind is the blessing with the conference making the move, with bringing in FAMU and Southern, but also to the other side, what maybe are some of the concerns or struggle in regards to the conferencing conflict. You know, everybody is jostling. You have your divisional alignment, which helps to some degree reduce travel, but it also then means that some teams are not going to be able to play but at given times, and everybody's negotiating in terms of who should be the intra-divisional rival based on the 5-team, one scenario, 8 in football, right? 5 teams in your division, 3 in the other, but how do you rotate evenly? Are you holding the team on your schedule? Talk a little bit about the unique and why that becomes such a financial boom, particularly now coming out of COVID. I know that was a long question there, but I wanted to make sure we construct it in such a way that you got a chance to be fair with your answer.
Okay. First and foremost, I would start my response to that by saying Dr. Charles McClellan and even my old buddy, Dr. Jason Cavil, phenomenal leadership, right? I think
he did have to find a way to throw out a frat brother there.
Yeah, I will throw my guy in there. Their leadership has been transcendent for this conference, I would tell you that the addition of FAMU and Bethune-Cookman University is going to create basically a classic-like atmosphere on HBCU campuses week after week after week. And I'll start here, and I'll reference Southern University and Florida A&M last September. You want to talk about electric, right? I hadn't seen that many people in orange and green in a lifetime. It was phenomenal. I learned more about student at FAMU in 2005. I learned so much about that institution, how proud they are, some of the products that they've been able to put out, what they're doing research-wise. I mean, I became a fan at that point. Obviously I didn't want to win, but the pageantry of that game, what it meant to that community, what it meant to HBCUs that weekend was really special. And to have that now morphed into a normal occurrence, whether that be every year, every 2 years, 2 years on, 2 years off, for me, it is outstanding in and of itself. The second part of that response, I think you said, what would be the concerns? That would be my only concern, is that Southern and FAMU may not play every year. But when Southern and FAMU doesn't play, Southern and Bethune-Cookman may play, right? But we also have the flexibility, as schedule makers, to know and understand if 1 year, if I don't have, or 2 years, if I don't have Florida A&M, Jackson State, Bethune-Cookman, Alabama A&M, Alabama State on my schedule, then I have the ability to go and schedule them out of conference and be able to do that much more individually for our bottom line, whether we're playing a home game or for the experience if we're playing a road game. Let me say this, and I can add to that, and I know I've kind of hinged on football quite a bit, but if you really go back and do your research and really understand what these two institutions are going to bring to the table from a baseball standpoint, from a softball standpoint.
Bingo. You hit it right there.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to elevate the conference year round.
Right? Big time.
Yeah.
We know what they're going to do with football, but I believe I have the best baseball coach in black college sports. I'm sure one of those institutions believes it. I'm sure Jackson believes it. I'm sure Prairie View believes it. They're going to get an opportunity to put that on full display every weekend or every other weekend. So
awesome point.
From an academic standpoint, that is going to further elevate our conference. I talked earlier about obviously some of the things that FAMU brings to the table, with them being a research and one of the top public HBCUs, or the top HBCU in America. What that's going to do for the conference's academic profile. And so when you start looking at all of those things, what they're going to do in terms of academic progress rate. I've got friends. Reggie Thomas is the senior associate at Bethune-Cookman. He's a great friend of mine, one of my best friends in this business. Understanding what they're doing over there in terms of academics is only going to make us work that much harder. So the competition is going to extend well beyond football, into baseball, softball, and the Olympic sports, all the way into the classroom, to research dollars for our institution, and for things that will inevitably provide lifetimes of memories for our student athletes, but also have them come back and give back to their institutions through the experiences that they've gained from playing a Florida A&M or a Bethune or a Jackson or a Prairie View, right? So all in all, great opportunity for growth. Again, kudos to our leadership in the commissioner's office for grabbing the bull by the horns and putting the Southwestern Athletic Conference first. And I'm so excited to be a part of it. With this COVID stuff, I feel like it's setting us up. And next fall, we're going to have the opportunity as a conference to be on a platform that I feel like some even group of 5 schools won't have access to. So when you start talking about the product on the field, when you start talking about the product in the stands with our bands and the pageantry of these games and the passion of the alumni, along with cheer and dance and all of these other groups, fraternities and sororities, it's going to be an experience that's unmatched. And I'm looking forward to it.
No doubt about it.
No doubt.
We have a minute up on the clock. I did want to give you a chance. We have 2 minutes. Did want to give you a chance to give a shout out, any statement that you want to make before we come to the close. And like I said, we'll bring you back periodically to give us some frameworks, as you did today, about the operating side and the climb that you're making, and just an insight that we can't really get anywhere else. So we're going to do that, but give you a couple of minutes to give a shout out things that we may not ask you that you want to get out to everybody.
Really nothing much to offer additionally. Obviously, Dr. Cavil, I think we talk so much, I'm an open book. But I will close with this, and I'm going to give y'all something that I've not given. My phone's been ringing all day, full of media. There was an incident yesterday with a student athlete on our campus and a gentleman jogging off campus. And I will say this about that. We have got to change. And without being overly critical and probably preaching, our student athletes and the student athletes on these campuses are all over America. These Black and brown student athletes are here to get an education. And like I said earlier, they're here to change the trajectory of their lives financially and build relationships that last a lifetime. If we don't get a handle and have some understanding across the board, being able to discuss and rationalize our differences, our beliefs, whether they be racial, whether they be spiritual, whether they be political, then we're going to find ourselves in a position that we cannot overcome. And so I will use my 2 minutes to advocate for us to improve the quality of life of our student athletes, as my son yells in the background because his mom just walked in. I have 2 brown boys, and what if that would have gone sideways and something would have happened to that young lady, right?
Yeah.
And so, for all of our campuses, continue to stick together, continue to move mountains, continue to do a lot with a little, but we've got to confront this thing head on, and we've got to do it together. So that's what I'll finish with today. And anytime you need me on your show, I will be more than happy to come back and share whatever insight that I can offer.
Thank you. We'll do that.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. That's
Well
Dr. Trayvean Scott.
Yes, thank you.
Here on Dr. Ville's Inside HBCU Sports Lab. Well said. Great place to close out the top of the hour as we tune off on Ralph Cooper in terms of Texas Radio Hall of Famer. So we'll close out the show from the terrestrial side, KSWH 1230 AM radio side as we do it on that part, KSWH 1230 Studios, with Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University, right here from Houston, Texas. Again, Dr. Trayvean Scott, we want to thank you as he is the deputy executive director of Southern University's athletic program there, CEO as well. Make sure I get all his accolades in there. Chief Operating Officer. Do that. I kid him because Carol, as I said, young gun doing great work. Dr. Trayvean Scott, with all sincere, appreciate the work you're doing and the spirit that you have in doing it, and the fact that you have a great focus in terms of doing it for what I call the college athletes, what a lot of people refer to student athletes. But appreciate you from that perspective. We'll have you back on, and we'll talk a little more sooner than later. As you know, we'll have to go back and forth as we continue to grow and groom in terms of what we do for our HBCUs respectively. With that, Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We'll take it off the air. We'll stick around with it. We'll be right back as we have a couple of things we want to close on in regards to HBCU sporting news and give you some perspective of what we think what's the hot and not so hot going on with HBCU sports at this time. Again, thank you, Dr. Trayvean Scott, Southern University.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. I hope you enjoyed our interview with Dr. Trayvean Scott of Southern University, Deputy Executive Athletic Director there. With that, I wanted to get in a little bit on the SSIAC. I told you I got some love from the commissioner over there. I got this surprise package, they're taking care of me, warm-ups, and it's going to get cold, so I'm going to be sure I put that on. 1913, a lot of history there. And Allen University is part of that history, and now they have rejoined the SIAC as a provisional member. The school announced in a release Friday Unanimous vote by the SIAC Council of Presidents to admit Allen is a byproduct of the NCAA's membership committee's decision to admit Allen University as a one-year provisional member of the NCAA. Allen University was once a powerhouse in the SIAC during the membership from 1947 to 1968, before it eventually became a member of the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, better known as the NAIA. Allen sponsors 13 intercollegiate programs. Student athletes compete in men's football, men's and women's basketball, men's and women's cross country, men's and women's track and field, women's volleyball, women's softball, men's soccer, men's wrestling. The university is excited to join the SIAC and looks forward to not only the healthy competition to come, but the caliber of students to compete. The school said in a statement, with a dedicated athletic staff and a healthy pool of student athletes, the institution is well on its way of an athletic renaissance, end quote, as you got that from Allen University. I'm going to go to you, Charles. What are your thoughts about Allen University rejoining the SIAC, as the SIAC is putting a nice composite of HBCUs in the region, gives some regional rivalry to Benedict right there in South Carolina. What are your thoughts about SIAC rejoining the conference?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of talking about the regional familiarity of Allen coming back into the SIAC, and to have that instant rival, if you will, right there with Benedict. Did I hear you mention men's soccer? They have men's soccer at Allen?
Yes, men's soccer.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's big news there, because we don't see men's soccer across the board in terms of HBCU sports. So I'm curious, if men's soccer, what conference are they participating in? Or
Yeah, SIAC doesn't have men's soccer at this
Right.
point. A couple of teams that have it in the SIAC. I know Morehouse had a big time program there for a while. They had to stop it with the NCAA Division II when some issues came up in terms of violations there. I'm not sure if they brought it back or plan to bring it back. So we'll see that. I'm trying to think if I remember Edward Waters having soccer or not, men's soccer. But I'll take a deeper dive. But it'll be interesting to see in regards to what that means for the conference. Obviously, you had that big announcement, Edward Waters, with men's volleyball, along with 6 other teams in the conference getting some funding. The conference commissioner was able to get there. So that's going to be, and that is Greg Moore, SIAC commissioner. Great work he's been able to do over there in terms of elevating that conference. It's a good thing when you have people that want to be a part of the member of your conference. There's a lot in terms of what's going on. That to you, Mike, what are your thoughts about Allen University rejoining the SIAC?
Yeah, I think you have the makings for a good rivalry. You have a liberal arts college in Benedict versus a private institution in Allen, both in Columbia, South Carolina. So that's going to make for an interesting gumbo of rivalries in and of itself. And I'm kind of like CB. They have, men's soccer, but they also have men's wrestling. So I don't know too many other SIAC programs that have men's wrestling. So they're bringing a lot to the fray. So I'm wondering, like CB is, what conference have they? But I think it's good for the SIAC because you're bringing some different exposures in terms of sports, maybe academics, even being it's a private institution. But I'm wondering where some of the athletic venues will be played out in. So, but I think
great point. And I just got an update from AD, as I thought I saw this with Edward Waters. He updated me and said they are starting soccer this year. And they're doing it in men's and women's in terms of soccer at Edward Waters College. So we got at least 2 of the program. As I said, I know Morehouse had a program for a while. So it'll be interesting to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
In regards to what that looks like. So even if they are not part of the SIAC with the minimum 6 teams, you can see maybe Allen and Edward Waters coming together to go and play soccer in a different conference, but they could play together to keep at least HBCUs in the same rivalry connection. So it'll be fascinating to see. So much going on in the SIAC. We're going to take some deeper dives in terms of that. They're going to try to play sports in the spring, so we'll get a chance to even talk more about what's going on over there. Again, kudos for Greg Moore, brother Greg Moore, as I would say, in terms of commission over there at the SIAC. A lot of good things going on. Michael D. Jones is chapping in here, getting in. He said, "What's going on, fellas?" Anthony Weston said, "What's up, everyone?" Giving us a shout out. Barry Williams talking about Michael D. Saying yes, as he said, "Is Allen at HBCU?" Oh yeah, you know that's the only thing we talk about on here now. The HBCU.
Yeah.
We don't take a deep dive into not HBCU, but fair question. Smaller private HBCU in South Carolina there. Getting it done. So back into the SIAC, big time news going on there. Thought that was interesting. Wanted to get into a little more news in terms of what's going on. While you were talking about Jackson State, I know you talked about this, certainly Texas in this, and wanted to talk about Jackson State attracts the talent in women's basketball. 4-star point guard, Shakia Allman, number 70. Women's college basketball prospect in the country, according to ESPN, has committed to Jackson State. The 5'7" Allman made the announcement Friday on Twitter. She picked the Tigers over several Power 5 schools, including Kentucky, University of Mississippi, I don't use that other term, Kansas. She's the first top 100 player in 2021 class to pick an HBCU. She says, quote, "I've always wanted to do something different and be my own person," end quote. I know that's right. Allman said, quote, "I like to start trends, and it might not be today or tomorrow or even this year, but eventually people are going to start catching on and moving to HBCU, so that's the plan," end quote. Boy, you talking about that's pretty big. Woo. Now check this part out. She said her interest in the Tigers began long before Deion Sanders was hired as the school's football coach, as she verbally committed in early September. So to give you a connection of what that looks like with my personality, quote, she's saying, "I'll be honest, sometimes I'll have a standoffish vibe, and Jackson State picked up on how to deal with me," end quote. I like that. That's how you really got to understand how to work with all types of people, all different ways, and find a way to make them feel comfortable and at home. With that, I'm going to go with Mike first, and then Charles to close out on what his thoughts are. We know what he's going to say in a lot of ways in terms of being down in the movement. So Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of this big announcement? We've seen this a little bit on the men's side, but now we see the women's coming in forward. We've seen that with the volleyball, obviously, with the young lady, the twins picking Howard University in terms of that. Now we see it in women's basketball, top 100, number 70. What are your thoughts on this news here, Mike?
Yeah, I was still on the twins from Cypress, Texas, leaving Texas A&M to pick Howard, and now this, but I mean, you blame her? Coach Tamika Reed, you got the makings of a baby, an HBCU UConn, building there, a championship platform. She's obviously well-grounded, but I think it's a good thing. I think you're going to see more, because if she's doing it, that means there's 2 or 3 other top candidates that are at least thinking it. So, and, she says, in her statement, she says, this was before Deion. Now, just think of the impact that Deion going there has had on those folks who were already thinking that. So, and throwing this movement that there is a grassroots movement, whether you want to admit it or not, of young athletes, choosing HBCUs. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, I don't expect this to be the last one. I know Charles is sitting over there jumping into bits.
Well, I will say this, and
before you do that, before you jump in here, I want to give a shout out to Kay Johnson. Say yes, JSU Tigers. Coach Reed is excellent. Big time. Give a nose for let Charles jump in here and fill in the bits. Just want to know you got fans out there, man.
No doubt. I mean, Tamika Reed has quickly, in the short time she's been at Jackson State, developed a reputation as being one of the most dogged recruiters in the region. When you take a look at the roster right now, she has 6 Dandy Dozen players, and in Mississippi, the Dandy Dozen is the equivalent of the best in the state. And they're at Jackson State. And now she's taking that brand on a more national level. When you get one of the top 100 players in the country to commit to Jackson State's women's program, and like we said, she was doing this before Coach Prime, before Coach Sanders got to Jackson State. So I tell you, the work that she's doing is nothing short of phenomenal. They had their ring ceremony today, and she made comments today in regards to what this team was able to do last year. And we talk about football coaches making you want to, run through a wall. I tell you, she is one of those rare breeds of coaches who really, every time she speaks, she fires you up. And I could see how it would be very easy for players to want to come play for her. She is definitely next level in terms of some of the things that she's doing at Jackson State. And I really do expect for them, and I always put the caveat, if we play basketball this season, Jackson State is going to turn some heads on a national basis.
I put her up there. She is a rising Pat Summitt, Gino Auriemma. Seriously, she has that impact.
Very seriously, yeah.
For HBCU females looking at that program. That's the Tamika Reed impact. And, yeah. I mean, there's no other way to explain it.
And Dr. Ville, I keep saying the Renaissance is upon us. We take a look at some of these athletes transferring from historically white colleges and universities to HBCUs. But I think really looking at women's programs, that's where I'm starting to really pay attention to. They're starting to get some of the top talent in the nation, whether it's from a JUCO perspective or now even more so starting to come straight from high school. And that, to me, says a whole lot.
Yeah, you talk about that. You talk about that right here. Women, our sisters, they're getting it done in so many different ways. As I put this up, I just wanted to give a little shout out there. It doesn't surprise me when you talk about it in terms of, men maybe being different, hesitant, in different framework of what they're going to do. The women have this different disposition for whatever reason. And I just want to frankly give them credit that they find a way to lead the way.
Proactive.
And they have a less framework. And I think it's just Afrocentric, it's the nature, whatever, that it is about family. It is about the community. It's about the culture more than it is for men. I hate to frame it, but it's more individualistic for whatever reason. It's more Eurocentric that we've got trapping into that. And obviously not to the level, but I'm saying you see that from a larger perspective of the market in terms of them doing that. And so that's something I think we need to celebrate and speak out to.
Very much.
Our own personal perspective about that. And this is not to down men, but this is accentuate and to celebrate women in terms of what they're able to do and what they're standing for and what they continue to do for us in so many ways. So much praise for that. Want to stick with basketball a little bit. I want to stick on this basketball because I want to bring it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Do that, but let you go ahead and jump in there because I don't want you to lose that thought.
Well, yeah, I wanted to follow up on your point, and we saw the framework that you just put out, and we saw that very much so with the WNBA. I mean, and their social activism, and as much as we looked at from a national perspective what the NBA was doing, the WNBA was just as proactive, if not more. And just taking a look at their causes, they're getting even more, political, if you will, speaking directly to Senate races and things of that nature. So a very great point that you bring out in terms of talking about some of the things that our female athletes are doing and how their perspective is a little different than male counterparts.
Great point. I don't know how you're going to take this one, but I think it's important to put it out there. Michael D. Jones says, Coach Reed is the Dave Whitney of SWAC women's basketball. Coach and recruit. So I don't know if that's backwards. Yeah.
I will say she's the Sadie McGee and Shirley Walker, all in the one of the.
There you go. I knew you were going to find the rest to make it work. Cedric Johnson says she believed in the potential of Jackson State from day one and is now putting it into action. No doubt about it. I'm going to love to be able to talk women's basketball in the conference, and we'll do our justice to make sure we put that out there. And we're going to have good reason to talk about it because it's going to be some great basketball play. With that, let's keep on this basketball framework as we get to closing this thing out. We got about 12 minutes to kind of talk about a couple of things. South Carolina State non-conference schedule faces tough competition with the ACC, SEC, They have Clemson on the schedule in terms of the ACC, South Carolina for the SEC. But they're keeping it pretty regional in a lot of ways. Furman University, Presbyterian. They go out of it, go to North Carolina, Asheville, and Charlotte. College is Charleston. They have Jacksonville at home, so they do have a regional Division I matchup at home. I'm glad to see in regards to that. And I'm not even going to mention the other university. It's just how I feel about that right now with that information. But men's basketball is headed to Louisville for the Wade Houston Tip-Off Classic. Defending SWAC champions are set to head to Louisville, Kentucky to participate in the University of Louisville hosted by Wade Houston Tip-Off Classic. That will be November 25th to December 4th. So some good HBCU basketball, one of the ones we'll get to tip off and see how that goes as we start to see about these programs trying to get into basketball. It's going to be interesting. I personally believe that you're going to see basketball played even in these conditions, but I think you're going to see what's taking place in football. You're going to see where teams are going to have to sit games out, sit players out, so it's going to be off and on, and so that's going to be the current situation you're in as they forge through this. As long as safety is held at the highest, I'll continue to watch with that framework and certainly want to see the safety. And I believe that they have learned a lot more information about how they can proceed in such a way. I think it is important to put in the context that they've had studies at the NCAA, even though I have my concerns with the NCAA, is that they have not seen the tracing of COVID-19 in actual sporting activities in terms of the football field. Obviously, there have been issues with students. We've seen that with student testing on campus, which obviously is going to influence college athletes. So that's something to keep your eyes on. And then I have my concerns in terms of, for those that have caught it or will catch it, in terms of what will this do in terms of the long term.
Yeah.
And those are some things we just don't know. Right. And so we just have to be mindful of that. Certainly at some level, sports will go on. And so we'll be here to give you that latest update on that. But I know, Charles, you wanted to get in a little bit and break down some basketball. SWAC, MEAC, SWAC, particularly men's and women's, I should say, open up with some updates on the basketball. And I know you were jumping on bits to get into this. So take it away, and then I'm going to let Mike give me some thoughts in terms of his thoughts in terms of the seeding and what this looks like.
Well, sure thing. Last week we had SWAC Media Day, which was November 2nd and 3rd, where they had the preseason all SWAC team name and preseason player and defensive player of the year. And I'm going to start on the women's side of the ball. Preseason player of the year is Amisha Williams from Jackson State. She also was named the preseason defensive player of the year. All SWAC first team, Justice Coleman, senior from Grambling, Deja Rogan, senior from Jackson State, Nia Mitchell, she's a graduate student at Texas Southern, Dariana Lewis is a junior at Alabama A&M forward, and center Amisha Williams were all preseason all SWAC first teamers. Preseason all SWAC second team was Ataya Bridges. She's a senior from Texas Southern. Deshauna Harper, senior from Alabama A&M. Jayla Crawford, junior from Alabama State. Ayana Emanuel, junior from Alabama State. And Nigeria Jones, she is a senior from Alabama A&M. I tell you what, Dr. Cavil, the women's side of the ball is going to be tremendous when you take a look at Jackson State, Southern. Interestingly enough, Southern did not have a player named on this first or second team, but Carlos Funch's teams are always right in the mix. You're talking about Jackson State, Texas Southern, Prairie View looking to get back in the mix, Grambling looking to get back in the mix. But I think the surprise team that many people might not have an eye on is Alabama A&M. Alabama A&M is one of the teams that gave Jackson State one of their losses on the road last year. They are a very tough team with Dariana Lewis as well as Deshauna Harper. Nice 1-2 punch for the Alabama A&M Lady Bulldogs.
Ooh, that's nice. Yeah. Nice breakdown as you get into it. Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of SWAC basketball, women's side, men's side?
Well, really, I can't top CB's analysis. You know, the one thing I will say that Alabama A&M has 2 seniors and a junior, and they made an impact last year with arguably underclassmen. So now you have a more mature class. So I do agree they're going to make a path. They're going to make a path, but you can't deny what Jackson State's going to do. And I don't know. I even though Texas Southern doesn't have anybody on there, you cannot count out the Lady Tigers. I expect a competitive season from them as well. I agree it's going to be a great season, but I expect Texas Southern to somehow show up in the midst as well. So
Two great games last year with Jackson State and Texas Southern. You're talking about a team like razor thin.
I hate that we didn't get to
exactly
see it.
Right, we were deprived of that in the tournament.
Yeah. I missed the game. I missed the game, but I know Texas Southern's going to put a great team on the floor.
Always.
Yeah, and they have some nice recruits in regards to some transfers they got in, players coming back. So yeah, that's just going to be nice when you talk about some great basketball. I want to give a shout out to Jimmy. Jimmy is a huge basketball fan, and he gives us a lot of our backdoor information. And he put this out here right before they releasing everything, and he put his top 10. So we're going to break down this top 10, and then we got a nice little surprise I asked him to do because, I always like to market, I always like to brand and like to stem the thought process. This is his top 10. This is Jimmy's top 10. And for the rest of you out here following us, you can give me your top 10. This is on the men's basketball side, and next week we'll do the women's basketball side of it. But on the men, at number 10, Jimmy has Alabama State at number 10. At number 9, UAPB. At number 8, Grambling State. At number 7, Valley, Mississippi Valley State. At number 6, Alabama A&M, rounding out the bottom 5 of the conference in Jimmy's opinion. As you all out there, give me your top 10 or your top 5 at least. Let me know your thoughts. Moving on to the top 5. He has Prairie View at number 5. They think back in his eyes. At number 4, Jackson State University. At number 3, he has Alcorn State University. At number 2, he has Southern University. At number 1, he has Texas Southern University in terms of his top 10 inside of the ledger. So I thought that was fascinating. Let me go to Mike first to get your thoughts on this top 10. Which teams do you agree with or don't you agree with in terms of Jimmy's top 10 in the mix there?
First of all, I know Carlos Brown is going to be listening to it, but my number 1 would probably be Southern University. They finished the season tough last year. They bring some folks back. Prairie View lost 2 of their biggest stars from last year. They still have a good guard and a forward coming back, and the names escape me, so you have to forgive me as it's been a long week. But I wouldn't put Prairie View at number 5. I had them at number 3. So those are two big disagreements I have. So I have Southern number 1, Texas Southern. You could argue is somewhere in the top 2, 3, 4 range. But I have Prairie View as well, and still in the top 3, not the number 1 team.
With that, Charles, as I go to you, he has Alabama State at number 10. Do you think Alabama State will not get that much of a lift from Mo Williams?
I think they're going to get a lift, but I think 10 is a good starting point for Alabama State.
Starting point, wow.
What was very interesting to me was Jimmy had Alcorn sitting around number 3, and I didn't know Alcorn was the number 1 scoring team in the SWAC last year. They averaged about 75 points a game, so very good work by Jimmy getting Alcorn snuck up in there in the top 5, and I know he's a big fan of Coach Bussey going to Alcorn. Bussey's going to get that Alcorn program right back in the thick of things. But when I take a look at Prairie View, they're missing a lot of what was their championship pieces. You're talking about 4 starters that are going to be gone from last year's team. So I know Prairie View, one of the best coaches in the SWAC, but that's going to be a tough hill to overcome. Jackson State being at 4, that's, I think, right about right in terms of looking at their program, because I just never know what I'm going to get from Jackson State. You're talking about a team that during the course of the season, they have 5-game winning streaks, but then they'll, go on the road and lose 2. So you just never know what you're going to get. And they have some scoring punch. Tristan Jarrett, he led the SWAC in scoring last year. He's preseason player of the year, preseason defensive player of the year, Javius McKinnis from Jackson State. So they have pieces, but they're inconsistent. So having them right around 4 To me, that was about right. And, you take a look at a team like Southern, they're one of the hottest teams in the conference going into the tournament last year. They won 9 in a row. Jackson State, I think, had won somewhere like 5 in a row going into the tournament. So we got deprived of what I thought was going to be a tournament for the ages. But coming into this season, I would say Southern probably has that momentum. They lost a few pieces from last year, but just that basketball program as a whole, they've been, whether it's the women or the men, they're somewhere always within the mix. So I think Jimmy is, right on point with where he was looking at.
The one thing I will say is Alcorn State may have had a top scoring, but if you look at their rebounding and defense, they were a one-dimensional team. Yeah. So they were high scoring, but when it came to it, stopping them on the boards or whatever, that's where they tend to have a little bit lackluster.
Top 3 teams in defense last year. You always can count on Jackson State. Wayne Brennan's going to always have a defensive team, but they got to find a way to score. They were 7th in the conference in scoring last year. But top 3 teams in the SWAC: Southern, Jackson State, and Prairie View. So when you have a good defensive team, you got to find a way to get some scoring down the in the latter part of the game. And I think that's where Jackson State kind of found themselves a little short last year. So if they can make up the shortfall they're going to be a team that's one to reckon with.
Man, this is great the way you broke that down. And y'all talked about all the teams, but not much about the number 1 team, Texas Southern University. Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of Texas Southern being number 1? Heard of all the transfers they got in, players coming back. Coach Jones is wanting to get over that hump. That's a program that is used to winning under Mike Davis, and obviously back before that, Coach Moreland, and then way back even in the 50s before they came into the SWAC in the Midwestern Athletic Conference, and then in the SWAC, a lot of history there as well with championships they put up going deep into the NIA tournament. What do you think about Texas Southern having the number 1 target on their back? Are they ready to hold it down and represent as the preseason number 1? Go with you, Mike. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's an argument to be made. The one thing that stands out with me is I don't know what their transfer effect is. What the transfer is. I don't know what kind of impact. Is that enough to put them over the hill? To me, Southern.
They got some talent. Go ahead, Charles.
I mean, the Texas Southern transfer impact, it's been going on now for over a decade. Yeah. They always bring in some studs. Let's put it that way. In a way, Dr. Cavil, it's sad that you just kind of take for granted that Texas Southern is probably be number 1 always. They're the Duke of the SWAC. So you don't know. You take a look at guys. Who's his rosters? He's a double machine. First team preseason all SWAC. Justin Hopkins. He's a guy who did everything: scoring, defense, passing, diving on the balls. He's somewhere within the leaders in terms of 2 or 3 or 4 stats within the SWAC. So, and then you have Chris Bolden, who's coming off the bench, who gives you scoring off the bench. But it's Texas Southern. They're going to be 1 or 2. You're fighting with Texas Southern and everybody else.
Well, hold on. Wait a minute. The point is, Texas Southern last year was, if you look statistically, they were, somewhere in the top 5 in defense. The scoring was an issue for them last year. They bought in some transfers. Is that going to be enough to get them over the hump to have a balanced team? We keep talking about it. Some teams are good on the boards. Some teams are good defensively. And some teams are good offensively. Texas Southern is one of those teams last year. They were marginally good last year, but they always have transfers. Are those transfers? I don't know enough about the transfers at this point to say that's going to put them over the hump this year.
See, I would say last year, especially with Texas Southern, it was their defense that let them down. And their defense was one of the worst in the SWAC. I think they were like 9th out of 10 teams in the SWAC. Yeah. You can always count on them scoring, but they got to get stops. And last year, they weren't able to get their normal stops that they normally do. And, a program like Texas Southern, they're 5 points up when they get off the bus. But last year, the defense let them down.
This is the little tease I want to get in there before we start to close it out. Man, great conversation, guys. Way to bring it as we get a chance to really get back into some sporting talk. So what we can do on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We've given you all the background with the knowledge. We've given you some of the operational side. We've given you some great interviews. But now we're going to get back into where we make our bread and butter, which is getting to the sports. So let's see what that is. One thing I did like to tease, out of this, I asked Jimmy to go back and I wanted to say, if Bethune-Cookman and FAMU were in the SWAC right now, basically, what do you see over there? And we'll see that this changes in 2021, but I wanted to sneak it in there in some ways, marketing. This is what he said. He kept the top 5 the same. 5 again was Prairie View, 4 was Jackson State, Alcorn was 3, 2 was Southern, and number 1 TSU. It was the bottom now 7 teams that changed and update. At number 6, you have, well, let me start at number 12. He still has Alabama State at number 12. And at number 11, you have UAPB. At number 10, you have Grambling. At number 9, you have Valley. This is where you see the first Florida school come in. At number 8, you see FAMU. He has number 7, Alabama A&M. And at number 6, Bethune-Cookman. So as we close, quick thoughts on that. Let's go to Charles first. And what you know about FAMU, because you study all HBCU basketball, would you have this alignment right in terms of what you've seen coming into this year in terms of the expectation for FAMU, Bethune-Cookman? Obviously, it'll change a little bit as they come in the SWAC, but it's fun just to think about it. Do you agree with this alignment in terms of Bethune-Cookman and FAMU at 6 and 8 respectively in a 12-member SWAC conference? Charles?
I like Jimmy with his little East Coast bias there, just throwing FAMU in front of folks. So, but credit to FAMU. I think they're a solid program, not a spectacular program. Are they better than the kind of the bottom half of the SWAC? Maybe. I think they've had 1 or 2 wins over the past couple of seasons that kind of turned my head. Bethune-Cookman, I think that's about right. That's 6. They're a rugged, nice little basketball team. They rebound like no other. But it's going to be fun getting them into the mix so I can kind of watch them a little bit more and see where they kind of match up with some of these SWAC schools. Because from what we've seen over there in the MEAC, it's been North Carolina A&T and North Carolina Central, and everybody else, let's see what you guys do.
All right, Mike, go ahead and do your thing, and then we'll take it out.
Well, same thing. If anybody has a chance, it's Bethune. They finished 3rd or 4th, but it was North Carolina Central and A&T that ran the MEAC from a basketball standpoint. Hell, FAM was like number 9 or number 10 in the MEAC. So
yeah,
what makes me think they're going to make any kind of impact in the SWAC? They were number 9 and 10 in offense, number 9 and 10 in defense, number 9 and 10 in rebounding. So they're going to come to the SWAC and do what? I'm sorry, I'm waiting for it.
We'll see.
And then I agree. Bethune, you don't know. Maybe they finished at the middle of the pack since they were, middle of the pack. I think 4 or 5 in the MEAC, if my memory serves me correctly. So.
Certainly. I do want to give a kudos to FAMU, and you'll appreciate this, Charles, as we start to close out this last segment. Last thing here is with the golf thing. HBCU Game Day, No Huddle had a great breakdown of golf team that had 4 of the top 5 minority players ranked, including the number 1. They had 3, 4, and 5 as well. 4 of the top 5, and that program was undefeated last year. And it'll be a team interesting as they come in the SWAC. A lot of pride in the SWAC in terms of golf. It'll be interesting to see what that does for recruiting in the golf.
Yeah, Florida A&M and Prairie View, they've taken over that mantle in golf in terms of what Jackson State used to be. And Ashley Robinson has talked about Jackson State getting that golf program back. But right now it's Florida A&M and Prairie View, and I enjoy watching them both.
Be interesting. The 2 ag schools, you go from Texas to Florida. Good weather, a lot of golf players, makes sense. It'll be interesting if you can really make those 2 teams the peak of it and fight in terms of bringing up golf in the SWAC. Back to the days, like you said, in a lot of ways, perennial, the time that Jackson State was running through it and making a lot of history. Kudos to them. But with that, we'll bring it to a close. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure to share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU, College of HBCU Sports, with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. I hope you enjoyed our interview with Dr. Trayvean Scott of Southern University, Deputy Executive Director, Chief Operating Officer as well. And check out HBCU Game Day, No Huddle, Aspire. Check out that FAMU interview. It was really good. Great perspective, giving kudos to those young men as they get it done. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop every Tuesday right here at 6 o'clock. We look forward to next week when we discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyattaCavil. Again, that's DrKenyattaCavil. Want to give kudos to all those that follow us. Thank you for all the love. Keep giving us that shout out. Shout out again for Frank Nelson, Chuck Hunt, kicking it all the way through. In terms of that, he did add in there. Great point with Allen University. It's named after the AME founder, Richard Allen, in regards to that. And I believe A.D. Drew gave us some information in terms of the affiliation with the AME church. Great point. Need to make sure we put that history out there. That's extremely important. So thanks both A.D. as well as Chuck Hunt tying it in. Frank Nelson, good to see you, big Texas Southern fan. With that, dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon.
Course
lecture.
Dismiss.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU.